They said I was a nobody. Then my cold revenge revealed I secretly owned their entire future. The air in the opulent boardroom was thick with an almost unbearable tension. Yet I felt a profound sense of calm, an unwavering stillness within my core. Seraphina Sterling, adorned in a power suit that screamed success and privilege, stood at the head of the mahogany table, a triumphant smile plastered across her face. Her gaze swept over the gathered executives, lingering for a fraction of a second on me, a moment she undoubtedly intended as a final dismissive gesture. Tonight was her crowning glory, the culmination of months of aggressive negotiation for the merger with Apex Innovations, a deal she had championed as the salvation of Sterling Corp. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice rang out, confident, almost gloating. Tonight, we secure Sterling Corp's future. This merger isn't just a strategic alliance, it's a testament to leadership, vision, and the bold decisions required in these turbulent times. Her eyes, sharp and condescending, found mine again. Some people, she continued, her tone dripping with disdain, are content to merely observe, to process data and remain in the shadows. But true leaders forge their own path. A ripple of appreciative murmurs went through the room, directed at her, at the deal, at the future she was purportedly bringing. She picked up the ceremonial pen, poised to sign the binding agreement that would merge Sterling Corp with Apex Innovations, purportedly creating a monolithic entity. The cameras flashed, the news crew stood ready. This was it. The moment she believed she had won. They saw me as a nobody, a quiet data analyst, insignificant. They saw me as the very definition of someone who merely observed. They were about to learn just how profoundly wrong they were about what I had truly been observing and, indeed, what I had been quietly, meticulously building for years. My heart rate remained steady, my gaze unwavering. The revelation I carried was a silent promise, a carefully orchestrated symphony of control that was about to play out, not on her terms, but entirely on mine. For years I existed in the periphery of Sterling Corp, a ghost in the machine, tirelessly crunching numbers, identifying trends, and seeing patterns that others, blinded by their own ambition and perceived importance, completely missed. My name is Elara, and at 29, I was nothing more than a senior data analyst, a title that felt like a cruel joke given the depth of my understanding of the company's intricate financial DNA. I had joined the company fresh out of university, armed with a double major in advanced analytics and financial engineering, brimming with enthusiasm and a naive belief that merit would eventually be recognized. How mistaken I was. The corporate ladder at Sterling Corp wasn't climbed, it was inherited or ruthlessly clawed over. Seraphina Sterling was the epitome of the former. The CEO's daughter, she had sailed through various departments, leaving a trail of half-finished projects and thinly veiled contempt for anyone she deemed below her. And that list unfortunately included me. My quiet demeanor, my preference for data over boardroom theatrics, was consistently misinterpreted as timidity, a lack of ambition, or worse, incompetence. Elara, still buried in your spreadsheets? She'd scoff, strolling past my cubicle, her voice carrying just loud enough for others to hear. Some people are just meant to be background noise, I suppose. The sting of her words was a constant, dull ache, but it also became fuel. I saw the company's precarious position, not just from my data, but from the short-sighted decisions made by the very people who dismissed me. They were chasing quick wins, ignoring long-term liabilities, and gambling with the company's stability. I saw the iceberg, and they were arguing about the deck chairs. The pivotal moment came nearly 5 years ago. I had submitted a comprehensive report detailing a looming liquidity crisis, complete with predictive models and mitigation strategies. It was dismissed out of hand by Seraphina, who was then a junior executive. "Elara dear," she'd said, tapping the thick binder with a manicured nail, "we don't need your doomsday scenarios. We have a vision. Leave the big picture to us." That day, something shifted within me. I realized that my voice, my knowledge, would never be heard through conventional channels. They would never respect my intellect. So, I decided to build my own channel. My secret weapon wasn't a hidden talent. It was my existing talent, applied in a way they could never conceive. I began to quietly, meticulously invest, not just my personal savings, which were meager, but by leveraging my understanding of market inefficiencies and hidden value. I identified undervalued assets, overlooked patents, and distressed companies in industries Sterling Corp relied upon, or would soon. I spent countless nights and weekends poring over obscure financial documents, shell companies, and international regulations. I created a complex web of holdings, often through anonymous trusts and layers of corporate entities in various jurisdictions, a digital fortress built on data and foresight. My aim wasn't just to accumulate wealth, it was to accumulate strategic control. Control over the very assets, technologies, and supply chains that Sterling Corp and indeed its competitors would someday critically depend upon. I wasn't just observing, I was buying. I wasn't just analyzing, I was acquiring. I wasn't just planning. I was executing a silent, long-term takeover. As Seraphina's ill-conceived merger plans with Apex Innovations began to take shape, my own silent strategy accelerated. She saw me, no doubt, as a non-entity, a cog in the machine that was smoothly turning towards her triumph. Her condescension grew with each passing week. "Elara, can you pull the sales figures for the third quarter? And try not to look so lost this time," she'd jibe in front of colleagues. I would simply nod, my expression unreadable, and deliver the data promptly. Her confidence, born of ignorance and privilege, was my greatest ally. She never once suspected that while she was busy with flashy presentations and superficial negotiations, I was quietly consolidating my influence over the very ecosystem she navigated. I used my position as a data analyst to my advantage, leveraging access to internal reports and industry data to refine my investment strategy. While she was focusing on the grand public gestures of the merger, I was focusing on the granular foundational elements. Apex Innovations, the company she was so eager to merge with, had a complex structure. Their primary value lay in a series of proprietary algorithms and a sprawling logistics network. What Seraphina failed to see or chose to ignore were the myriad smaller companies that provided Apex with critical intellectual property, specialized components, and essential infrastructure. Through my network of anonymous trusts and proxy holdings, I had, over the past few years, slowly and imperceptibly acquired significant, even controlling stakes in many of these seemingly minor entities. My investments were diversified, spread across multiple sectors, ensuring that no single acquisition would raise a red flag. It was like building a massive, invisible spiderweb, strand by delicate strand, until the entire structure was interconnected, and I held the center. The more risk Seraphina took with Sterling Corp's future, the more opportunities it created for me. She pushed for aggressive timelines, bypassed due diligence, and ignored any dissenting voices. Each hurried decision, each overlooked detail was a thread I could tug on. When I heard whispers of the Apex Innovations merger, I initiated a targeted campaign. I knew Apex's vulnerabilities better than Seraphina ever could, because I had spent years analyzing their suppliers, their licensing agreements, their debt structures. I systematically acquired more shares, not directly in Apex, but in their key patent holders, their integral software providers, their essential distribution partners. Seraphina's public pronouncements about the merger were loud, boisterous, and full of self-congratulation. My moves were silent, precise, and utterly undetectable to the naked eye. She believed her power came from her title, her lineage, and her ability to manipulate. I knew real power came from proprietary information, foresight, and absolute control over essential resources. She was orchestrating a deal for her company. I was orchestrating a future that included her company, but on my terms. The moment arrived, a crescendo of flashbulbs and hushed anticipation. The signing ceremony, broadcast live, was a testament to Seraphina's unshakable belief in her own destiny. She stood beside Mr. Harrison, the CEO of Apex Innovations, both poised over the merger documents. The room was packed with the board members of both companies, major investors, and a contingent of international press. Seraphina's father, the stoic CEO of Sterling Corp, sat at the head of the table, a proud, almost relieved expression on his face. This merger, he believed, would solidify his legacy. And I, Elara, was merely an invited guest, a minor employee who had somehow warranted a seat in the back row, unseen amongst the sea of powerful faces. Seraphina cleared her throat, her voice resonating with an almost theatrical triumph. "This is more than a merger," she declared, her eyes sweeping the room. "It is a new dawn for innovation, a testament to bold leadership and unwavering vision. With these signatures, we officially usher in an era of unprecedented growth and stability for both Sterling Corp and Apex Innovations." She extended the pen to Mr. Harrison, a gesture of corporate camaraderie. Mr. Harrison mirrored her, picking up his own pen. Just as their hands lowered, poised to make history, I rose from my seat. There was no grand gesture, no shouted declaration. I simply stood, calmly, purposefully. A few heads turned, confused. Seraphina's smile faltered, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. Elara, is there a problem? She asked, her voice laced with impatience. Perhaps you're in the wrong room. Her words were meant to dismiss, to belittle. But they only fueled my resolve. No, Miss Sterling, I replied, my voice steady, clear, carrying to every corner of the room. I am precisely where I need to be. In fact, I believe I am the only one who truly understands the nature of the signatures about to be placed on that document. A murmur spread. Seraphina scoffed. What on earth are you talking about, Elara? Are you unwell? I took a slow, deliberate step forward. This merger, Miss Sterling, is indeed significant. But not in the way you perceive. I looked directly at Mr. Harrison, then at Seraphina. You believe you are merging Sterling Corp with Apex Innovations. What you perhaps don't realize is that for the past 5 years, I have been quietly, strategically, and legally acquiring controlling interests in over 37 key companies that form the critical intellectual property, logistical backbone, and core operational suppliers of Apex Innovations. In essence, Mr. Harrison, I turned to him, his face now a mask of confusion. Your company's core value, its technology licenses, its supply chain, its very ability to function, is inextricably tied to entities that not Apex Innovations, now control. And Miss Sterling, my gaze returned to her, watching the comprehension dawn in her eyes, the largest institutional investor in Sterling Corp, holding a decisive 27% stake, is not a fund you recognize. It's a series of shell corporations anonymously managed which I established over the past decade. Therefore, for all intents and purposes, this merger you are about to sign, it would simply be the formal consolidation of 2 entities, both of which are, in effect, already under my ultimate control. A gasp rippled through the room. Seraphina's face drained of color, her jaw slack. Her father, the CEO, looked as though he had been struck. Mr. Harrison dropped his pen, a clatter echoing in the sudden stunned silence. This is impossible, Seraphina whispered, her voice barely audible, a stark contrast to her earlier grand pronouncements. Impossible? Or merely beyond your calculations? I countered calmly, my voice unwavering. I have the documentation to prove every single acquisition, every ownership transfer, every legal and financial instrument. It's all perfectly legitimate. For years you saw me as a quiet data analyst, insignificant. But while you were busy chasing headlines, I was busy acquiring the very foundations of your future. You didn't just overlook me, Miss Sterling. You overlooked the entire architecture of control I painstakingly built around you. The air was now thick with an entirely different kind of tension, one of utter disbelief, shock, and dawning fear. The aftermath of my revelation was nothing short of a corporate earthquake. Seraphina, who just moments before had been standing on the precipice of her triumphant signature, crumbled. Her face, once a picture of arrogant confidence, twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated humiliation. She stammered, she yelled, she demanded proof, but the cold, hard facts I presented, projected seamlessly onto the boardroom screen via a remote trigger from my tablet, silenced her. Legal documents, intricate flowcharts of ownership, and irrefutable financial trails appeared, each line, each connection, a testament to my years of meticulous hidden work. Her father, the CEO, looked utterly shattered. He didn't yell, he didn't blame, he simply looked at me with a profound, dawning regret, a silent acknowledgement of how grievously he and his daughter had underestimated me. The board members of both Sterling Corp and Apex Innovations were in a state of chaos, their faces a mixture of disbelief, panic, and outright awe. Mr. Harrison, the Apex CEO, was particularly distressed. His company, his legacy, was suddenly revealed to be largely dependent on my unseen, quietly acquired assets. He saw the trap, the elegant, undeniable trap that I had laid, not with force, but with pure intellectual strategy. Apologies, belated and hollow, started to trickle in. Elara, we had no idea. This is truly astonishing, but I merely nodded, accepting their words without emotion. This wasn't about validation, it was about consequence. Seraphina, unable to bear the public humiliation, fled the room, her high heels echoing frantically down the hall. Her dreams of power, her unearned authority had evaporated in an instant, exposed as nothing more than a privileged fantasy. I didn't gloat, I didn't smile. My demeanor remained calm, controlled. This wasn't personal vindication, it was the logical conclusion of years of foresight and strategic execution. The power had shifted irrevocably and undeniably. The future of two major corporations, along with countless associated entities, now rested in the hands of the nobody they had so readily dismissed. The silence that followed Seraphina's retreat was heavy, filled with the weight of shattered assumptions and the chilling realization that true power often operates in the quietest, most unexpected corners. Months have passed since that evening, and the landscape of the corporate world has irrevocably changed. The merger, as Seraphina envisioned it, never happened. Instead, a new entity emerged, forged not by fleeting ambition, but by years of precise, strategic investment. Under my guidance, the companies I now control, including a restructured Sterling Corp and Apex Innovations, are thriving. I chose not to take the CEO title of Sterling Corp directly. Instead, I hold the chairman position of the newly formed holding company, overseeing a vast portfolio of interconnected enterprises. This allows me to focus on the strategic vision, the data analysis, and the long-term growth, the very things I excel at, without being bogged down by day-to-day managerial duties. Seraphina Sterling, once the presumed heir to a corporate empire, is gone from the public eye. Her spectacular fall from grace was a cautionary tale for those who equate privilege with competence. As for me, the quiet data analyst, I now navigate a world that once ignored me with a sense of peace and purpose. My days are filled with meaningful work, building sustainable futures, and fostering environments where true merit is recognized, not dismissed. I have assembled a team of brilliant minds, many of whom, like me, were once overlooked. We are building something real, something rooted in foresight, not in empty boasts. My story, I believe, serves as a powerful reminder. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never dismiss those who observe more than they speak, who listen more than they preach, who build in the shadows while others bask in the fleeting spotlight. True strength, real power, often lies not in the loudest voice or the most public display, but in the meticulous planning, the unwavering patience, and the profound wisdom that blossoms in silence. Life has a way of revealing the true architects of destiny, and sometimes the most unassuming figures hold the keys to the future. It's a lesson that, once learned, can change everything.